let's move on to our next session. And our next session is about From India to the World, the rising power of health tech and biotech. India's health tech and biotech ecosystem is stepping onto the global stage with utmost confidence. From breakthrough research and digital health platforms to scalable biotech innovations, founders are building solutions that travel far beyond borders. This session explores how science, technology, capital, and regulation are coming together to position India as a serious global player in healthcare innovation. So let's start with the session. May I request Mr. Deepak Tuli from Care to kindly join us on the stage. Big round of applause. Requesting Mr. Ashish Dugar from Sphaera, Pharma, to kindly join us on the stage. Huge round of applause, everyone. Mr. RajatJain from SunFox, Mr. Mousum, Paul Chaudhury from Lok Capital, and Mr. Rahul Agrawal, the moderator from Health Squad. Heartiest welcome to all our speakers and to the moderator of the session. In the meanwhile, I would also like to tell you about the master class that is going to happen at 12:45. It's about the topic of how to pitch in front of VCs, and the master class will be taken by Mr. Pankaj Bansal, and it will happen upstairs. All right, may I now request Dr. Sandeep Patil to kindly take the session forward. Thank you. It's Mr. Rahul Agrawal.
That's okay. Great. Thank you, Sanjeev ji, first of all, for putting us all here. So I think we have a great panel today. A founder from a leading health tech company, a founder from a leading med tech company, a founder from a leading biotech company, and an investor. I am also an investor, but thought we should get an alternate investor perspective as well, because I'll be mostly moderating and not giving my views. So I'll just introduce very quickly, but then let them introduce. So we have Deepak from Care, a very interesting health tech company, which is taking a very good view on how to digitize workflows within healthcare facilities, which eases the life of patients, clinicians, and then also use the data generated to help managements of those hospitals, healthcare facilities to take very smart decisions on increasing revenue, increasing profits. We have Ashish from Sphaera, again a very interesting biotech company which helps in early stages of drug discovery, helps global clients. And very interesting, Ashish was telling us yesterday, I didn't realize it, they're also now doing the reverse work, which is what they help build in, let's say, US or Europe. How can they get those very high quality products in the Indian market through their own efforts? So very interesting perspective. I'll let Ashish talk a little bit more about it. Rajat, again, very exciting med device. Again, a very great example of how you can innovate to solve for access problems, for mobility problems, very standard old age device. How do you innovate around it and build very interesting use cases around it? And Mousum, who's a very old friend, an ex-flatmate. We started working together when we did our first job. I think it was Mousum's second job, my first job. He's my squash and cycling buddy and a very dear friend. But more importantly, he's a very experienced private equity venture capital investor, now a director at Lok Capital, which is a very well-known impact and financial investment fund. So maybe I'll just let maybe I'll start with the first question, but as you take that question, just please describe about your work and your company's work, and then get into the answer for that question. So my first question is that, as I said, health tech, biotech, med tech, and maybe Mousum will start with you. Sorry, Deepak will keep you waiting. But in these spaces, right, and going with the topic which we have today, what are you seeing that is getting built very exciting in health tech, biotech, medtech from India for the world? Which type of models, which type of spaces you're seeing very exciting stuff getting built?
Yeah, thanks Rahul for the glorious introduction. But as a question, it's a very interesting question to start with. So I have been looking at healthcare investments for the last 15, 20 years, started more from diagnostics to healthcare delivery, pharma, and last 3 to 4 years I've been looking at health tech models. If I actually map the successful health tech companies who have taken the innovative product to the global market, I can very strongly see a correlation with what traditionally Indians have been very strong in. So if I take an example of Indians, have been doing teleradiology for a long time. So as an outsider of it, arguably probably the most successful case of health tech innovation going outside India is the radiology AI companies. You talk of Cure, you talk of Deep Tech, Carpal, and there are many more of them, smaller ones which are coming, where you have basically taken the initial trove of data of, India anyway has a large trove of data of radiology images, and you trained the model and created a proprietary database. The similar thing is happening from, if you look at India has been strong in healthcare BPOs, and that has extended towards RCM, SaaS, AI. Players who are now going into full cycle revenue management and workflow management, and the products like Innovaker. I don't know whether Eka has any play outside India, but that's another strong play which has proven the ground. The third is again coming from the pharma background, custom drug synthesis, drug discovery, doing small batches, clinical research and testing. That's also another area where Indian companies have been successful. The one which is now coming up more, and I'm more hopeful, is, being a country which a diverse healthcare need, a rugged environment, POC devices, which are point-of-care devices, which are tested and battle-hardened devices in India, can be easily taken, if not to a developed market, but at least to other emerging markets. Even remote patient care, which remote ICU care. These are models, I think, more attuned for taking it to outside India, where actually you leverage India's own technical capability and the depth in the market, and the product becomes more suitable for the global market.
Great. So we'll let the founders add their perspectives now. So Rajat, if you can start with maybe just a quick personal and company introduction. What exactly does your company do? And where in the global markets do you see an opportunity for what you're doing?
Okay, thanks, Rahul. So we started SunFox almost 10 years back. I come from the Western UP, and I've always seen that people who are probably suffering from a suspected heart attack, if it is a cardiac issue, they never made it to the hospital on time. And we also, even the technology has so evolved, but still just to differentiate between a regular pain, a gas pain, or a potential cardiac issue, we don't have a technology which can actually let people at home or probably next to the home in a neighborhood clinic identify and confirm whether it's a cardiac issue or not. So we make ultra portable devices which is smaller than matchbox. You can keep it in your pocket and detect a cardiac abnormality or heart attack on a smartphone itself. So when we started doing that, the idea was to solve for Bharat, for the remote India. But we started realizing that it's not just the Indian problem. The rest of the world also needs such solution. While we never thought that. So say for an example, if you go to a urban setting, so because of the high paying capacity, probably a tool which we innovated for a care provider, people want to buy it and keep it at home. So why don't we have a next thermometer for your heart? Why don't we have a blood pressure monitor? We have so many point of care devices, but why not something for heart? And that's why people started getting for the access. And we also see that this solves a big problem which we never thought of, is a intent and the friction. So we as a patients are always in a phase of denial that whether something is wrong or not. अरे मुझे क्या ही होगा, मैं तो बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ और हर चीज़ पे भागूंगा थोड़े ही hospital. So and this issue actually becomes worse, as a problem. So that's how we started. The product is called Spandan, and we after 7 years we managed to launch it on Shark Tank India for the first time, and everything exploded after that. And we learned from the market after that it's not just for the patient, the care provider equally need it, public health systems equally require it, and as Mousum also said, from the emerging markets we see more traction coming in. So now the opportunity part. So we saw two different type of opportunities again. One is from the emerging markets where the access is still a big problem. I was talking to a player recently in a country in Africa. They said in the entire country there are only 5 cardiologists. And now, forget about the other equipments and facilities. Yeah, so that is one segment. The second one is the developed nations and the more mature markets like US. We, in the recent couple of months, we started seeing a lot of traction coming from the US and Europe, and which sums to roughly 30% of the total traffic which we get. And that actually created a curiosity, and I went there, spent a month to learn what exactly is happening. And I realized if you want to go for a cardiac checkup voluntarily, so you have to at least be in a queue and a waiting queue for roughly 3 months to 7 months, like whatever is there. So those patients need it to decentralize the entire care and to reduce the burden on the healthcare facilities. And that this is where I see point of care devices will be flooded in the market in coming years. And cardiac has been a vacant space from the consumer as well as the first touch point side. So this is where we are building it for.
No, fascinating, Rajat. Maybe Ashish, if you want to share your views.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm associate with Sphaera Pharma. We're an early stage biotech, and we have been in operations since 2008. And I've been associated since 2008. When the company was started, it was a classic VC-funded company where eventually the VCs would look for an exit. But drug discovery is such a business where you cannot time the exit. 3-4 years ago, we assumed and took over the role as founders, and since then we have retooled the company. In last 15-16 years, we have learned a lot doing drug discovery and conventional drug discovery. How do you take a molecule, get it to various stages, and get it to an IND and out-license it? What we are doing now is trying to see how we can actually make a difference in the lives of people, rather than simply out-licensing the molecule and moving on. And this is something I was talking to Mousum this morning, that most of the families in India, almost 70-80%, they're one major disease away from bankruptcy. And our motto now is, whatever research we have done over the years, whatever we have learned, can we get something out there as a product in the hands of the patient? It could be a pharma, it could be a nutra, it could be in any other form. Now, will you be able to cure something? Maybe. If not cure, will you be able to stop the progression of the disease? Or will you have something for palliative care? There has to be a purpose to what we are doing. And the purpose is critical when you actually get the product out there in the hands of consumers, patients, healthcare providers, caregivers. So I think that's now has been our focus, and that's where we are working on. Last year, Q3 of last year, we launched a product where we worked on that molecule for 14 years. We've launched that in India for general health and wellness for people, and we are working with hospitals, doctors for institutional support, and those other things. And we continue to do a lot of classic drug discovery because that keeps on feeding into the pipeline that we have on the research side. So we continue to work with the US-based biotechs, virtual biotechs, where we are able to cross the regulatory hurdles in form of FDA, US FDA, bring those to India. So you have a pipeline that feeds into your research. At the same time, you're doing a lot now, India for India, that we were not doing 15 years ago. So I think has been the new direction that we have, and that's where things are looking at.
Fascinating. So Deepak, what are you building and where is the global potential for that?
Yeah, so I'll start from explaining what were we doing for the people who are not from healthcare. Otherwise it'll be very hard. I was non-healthcare 4 years back, and if I would have been sitting on the other side, I would not understand a single word. So for every technology, whether it's commerce or fintech, the data comes in a structured manner and transaction can happen. So if I have to transfer 10 rupees to Rahul, the 1010.0 is a structured amount. It goes from one system to another system, happens smoothly. Because I'm the one inputting the value. If I start putting 10, TEN, TAN, thus it'll be very hard for systems to build. Now who are in health tech, for a physician treating a patient, entering exactly Dolo 650 every time, fever every time in the same word and same manner is a very hard problem. And we all must have been a patient in our lives, have seen prescriptions which are hard to read. So we solve that problem for hospitals and physicians where they don't really have to type fever 100 times a day if they're seeing 100 patients. They probably speak, or the system understands that because my frequently used symptom is fever, will prompt fever, and a click will enter that value. So the documentation from physician, which is entry point, becomes digitized and goes into all the downstream flows for clinics and hospitals, helps them improve revenue. That's what we do. We've been doing this for 5 years. About 12,000 physicians on our platform use our system every day. We are now with large hospitals like Medanta, Apollo, Fortis, etc. are our customers, and they've been using us for solving this problem and then build revenue lines on top of these.
And globally, where are you seeing the potential for this?
Yeah, so if you see, there are most of these innovations which is called ambient listening, converting doctor and physician conversion into documentation is popular in US because that market pays for it, and documentation is a great need. But if you go beyond Middle East and Southeast Asia, these are the market where none of the global player has been investing, and we are the one looking at going into these markets and getting decent kind of tractions now.
Great, thank you. So if I can add my perspective as an investor, we've been investing, as Mousum also said, AI radiology companies, companies built out of Mumbai, Bangalore, Pune, where we're seeing very interesting models, getting US FDA, European regulatory validations. Indians anyways have been good on that. But then taking these models and creating and generating revenues and large businesses out of not only US and Europe, but places such as Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America now, the Middle East as well. So I think very fascinating stuff, and I think this also will add to India's soft power, right? Like the vaccines exports during the time of COVID did, right? A lot of goodwill. So hopefully that will happen. Now moving on to the next topic, and maybe we'll start in the reverse order. So Deepak, with you. What are the challenges and opportunities and challenges as you build these models for, let's say, global markets? I think Indian businesses we've generally seen are good at solving for regulatory and quality, but GTMs, and how do you compete with global MNCs, Asian MNCs, the Chinese companies? How do you, get around that?
So, if you look at every tech product, we feel have two parts of it. One is product and another was GTM, and both are equally important. And GTM is relatively now becoming even more important because baseline product creation is becoming easier and easier, right, with the help of modern age tools. Having an edge on product, we all Indians have always been very, very successful of building because of sheer nature of available resources. We build technology, but we forget about GTM in majority of the companies. And I believe that's been a large differentiator, especially in the B2B market like where we operate. One of the biggest advantage for us being in India is that sheer amount of data available with us to build around on the models and build our own fine-tuned models and MCP servers, etc. is easy. That's a great advantage of being here. Experimenting this product at a cheaper price is easy. So build product in India at scale is easy problem. Now taking them globally is a very, very hard problem where most of us, gets failed, and that's what we are trying to now implement. That how do you still manage India, keep scaling in India, and build a GTM layer which is parallel to edge. Otherwise, what will happen is you lose the edge in your home country, and then you're still trying to, while you're trying to figure it outside. So making the balance has becomes very important, and it comes from experience only. When you start building this, and this is my second venture, so we realized in the first one that you don't have to leave your home turf for someone else to come and take it. So you'll have to keep innovating on the Indian side or in our own business while we are building for the globe. And you don't have to really change, a whole technology, tech stack, etc. If you have to do that, then might as well do two different companies than doing one. If these keeps true, then investing equally in a GTM is a very, very important aspect for any startup, and we are right now in that phase where we are saying, okay, let's keep defending India and do a separate GTM for other markets.
Sure. Ashish, you started doing it long back, right? So what has been your experience? What has changed in favor of Indian businesses, especially, let's say in biotech, right? I think there, India is being a servicing engine. But since, let's say, 2008, 2009 to today, what has improved for Indian businesses and what still persists as a challenge in building for global markets?
I think the business we are in, the regulatory aspect plays a very major role in what you have to get out there. The US regulatory market is very well defined, very predictable, and if you do this, what's the outcome? If you do that, what's the outcome? And I think over the years, and especially in the last 4 to 5 years, the Indian regulators have matured quite a bit, and we are seeing those changes. We are seeing the change in the difference in the policies that were there before and the changes they're bringing about now. And this is something that won't bear fruit right now, but in coming years, you will actually start seeing the fruits of these changes. So as of today, our go-to-market strategy continues to be the US because the regulatory framework that is well established. Now, if we were to ride on that regulatory framework and then come to India, it's easier. And based on that, our decision making happens that what product we are launching, what drug we are getting into, what indication we are getting into, what are the regulatory challenges. We have to look at those aspects before defining our GTM strategy. And in India, we are trying to get to a strategy where we can get to the consumers quickly. Because if we were to pick a product that has a therapy and an indication that will take about 10 years of development, we will not do it. But rather, we will get into a point where the development can be completed in 24 to 36 months, and at least you could get a phase 1 out there. So that's how our GTM strategy is right now being defined. But for us, US and India continue to be the two big largest sectors in terms of territory.
Great. So, Rajat, see, Deepak and Ashish built something which is more of a service, right? And you're more into a product, right, which has a service layer. And generally, right, and pardon me for saying this, Indian devices have found it much more tougher to globalize, right? Because US, European, now Chinese, US, European for that legacy quality perception, and Chinese because they're just so good at everything that they do, right? So for a product-led company, how are you seeing, your path to taking these to some global markets? What type of challenges you anticipate, and how are you planning?
So, as you rightly mentioned, being an Indian device company, there is a very different kind of perception you have to, crack for. So, even when you go to the regulators, like say US FDA, it actually took us longer than a regular, probably a Western company or a European company to go through the entire process, because you have to face a more stringent, scrutiny for the entire process than anybody else would have been facing. So, say for example, for a monitoring tool where you have to just prove it on a scale as a monitor, right? US regulators came back to us and said, hey, we trust that you have used it on, say, 100,000 plus people, but do you have a US population's data? So now, as per the rule book, it is not mandated to have that, because ultimately, if it is 1 volt, it is 1 volt. Doesn't matter on what population you are, using it for. But as a Indian company, we were the first ones in this category to face that. Now, you go to a testing lab where you get your product tested. So say for example, we went to the best of the global laboratories, but if that lab is situated in India, so the regulator believes that probably that lab may be cutting the corners. So why don't, and they come back to you and say, hey, can you go to this specific laboratory and get your product tested? So I've seen that is, a tough problem, which it will eventually will gonna solve. And then there are two different, aspects to it. One is when you look at the emerging market, they're more welcoming and pulling you towards those markets. So if you go to the Africa, they would be the happiest, patient if their report is probably verified by an Indian doctor. But if you go to the other markets, it will be the other way, right? So we have to actually we are required to make product changes also in order to capture those markets, and we have to solve those particular problems as well. And in our case, since we solve for the problem, like the patient problem as well as the care provider problem, so this challenge becomes even large. And we are trying to solve. Our strategy is very simple. We are going like sequentially rather than going simultaneously like in the US market. We are first establishing our over-the-counter product rather than going through the care provider route, which will be eventually more complicated for us. And the good part is for us that demand is already established, and there are the players who probably have more than 80% market share there. They have less than 10% market share in our category in India. So we have already proven our dominance on those technologies, and I think this is the way we are taking right now to actually get to those markets.
Great. So Mousum, coming to you as an investor's lens, right? And as Deepak also put up, that India is a huge market, right? So if you are looking at a young company which says, hey, I am building in India for India, and I also want to go to, let's say, 5 or 10 or 20 global markets, that's a very tricky slope, right? Where do you spend time? Where do you allocate resources? So as an investor, how do you look at that, and how do you guide the companies?
Yeah, globally, I think 30% of global healthcare expenditure just happens in one country, which is US. So for any health tech company, that market is a very tantalizing market where everyone wants to jump into that. So, and from a paying power perspective also, going to Europe or going to US is an ultimate validation of your product. But I think that's where, as a founder, particularly a company in the early stage needs to decide which market and what is the product you're bringing in, what problem you're solving. So if you're targeting the US market, and mind you, if you have to go to US market, you have to get a FDA 510K. These are not cheap. It takes probably $500,000 for you to get one approval. You need to understand what they need. So for US, triaging is the most important. I mean, if a patient comes in emergency, they have some legal requirement that within 1 hour you need to diagnose it properly. So you have to start thinking whether you're solving that problem. Cost is secondary. If you're going for the continental European market, it is efficiency they are looking at because they're suffering with huge backlog. So your product has to be designed accordingly. And in that case, you can focus just on European market and don't bother getting an FDA, just focus on getting CE certification. Similarly for NHS in UK, it's somewhere between US and Europe, but it's a cost and efficiency which you have to solve. So an early stage company needs to decide which market and what product are we solving. Second is, in terms of team and founder mix, how the design, it takes a lot of bandwidth to go and break into a customer in the US market or the European market. Most of the successful health tech companies who have been able to do it either have one founder sitting outside, probably spending more than 6 months' time traveling, or they would have a very strong back-end team in India, or a very strong, ex-business guy from some MNC who is handling the front end. So ability to spend that much of managerial bandwidth into those markets is an important consideration. The third is how you decide on what regulations to go for and how do you build your systems. I think many times you go for the 510K approval, FDA approval, and then you still figure out that your backend in terms of privacy, in terms of compliance with the HIPAA or compliance with the GDPR, which are respectively required in US and Europe, still needs to be strengthened. So each of the decision is a very nuanced decision. It's not an easy decision, and particularly with limited budget, you have to take a call which decision I have to go for, and then build a product and team and GTM around that.
No, fair enough. I think what, if I can add my perspective, right, again as an investor, is we've seen companies building, as Mousum said, right, US is the biggest healthcare market, right? Europe is also big, but it's fragmented and, regulatory-wise, different pathways. But tech company, if you can build for the US, products probably you have to look ex-US first, probably, and then, parallelly work. So the different routes which companies take, and many of them, are finding good success as well. Now, the big question, right, I think that's the flavor of the day. We just had a very big summit in Delhi around this topic 2 weeks back, artificial intelligence, right? It can be seen both as a threat and as an opportunity, right? So maybe again, if I start with the founders, Deepak, Mousum, can just pass on the mic. So Deepak, when you look at your business, right, how do you take AI into account? I'm sure you're working with it, but there's always that looming threat that someone somewhere is building something which can come and completely disrupt it. So how do you take that into account? How do you provide for it?
So, just for record, we are an AI company, so we sell AI to hospitals. That's our bread and butter. So, we live with it and embrace it.
But as I said, someone else might be building something, right? That's always a looming threat.
Coming on that. That's always, always in your mind. And that's not only in my mind, I think it should be in mind of every founder. There'll always be a company sitting in a remote corner which will just come and disrupt the market. We did that in our last avatar when we built Go Vivo. We were nowhere, nobody recognized us in the beginning for 4 years, and then suddenly everybody started doing. We're trying to do the same in health today, but I personally fear about this, what will be that disruption which will come and do it, and that's why I keep learning about what's happening in the market. And
There's no other way. Ashish?
I think in drug discovery, AI is solving more problems than creating. At the early stage, what AI does is it actually is helping a lot of companies eliminate the need to do the high throughput screening, which is expensive, time consuming. Data scientists are able to churn through tons of data that they were not able to do 10 years ago, which feeds into the discovery pipeline we have. Now, once you get into the clinical stage, there is a lot of clinical data management that goes back into the discovery pipeline, giving you ideas or giving you feedback that what is not working for the patients or clinicians. So for us, either ways, it's a good thing. And at the end, when you are running a chemistry lab, AI will not synthesize a molecule. A chemist has to synthesize a molecule. You can't take that away. But what you synthesize, how you synthesize, is getting easier with AI because of the data points you're getting from all around. I think it's very important with AI. With AI, you can have a lot of data and information. The smartness lies in what to do with the data and how to interpret that data. I think that's critical.
Rajat, your devices also, your SaaS is AI assisted. How to take it to the next level and provide for the looming threat?
So again, we also use AI, and it's kind of a part of our product which we sell. So, but I also see this is solving our and making our life easy. So if a doctor usually spend 15 minutes to look at one test, so we managed to reduce that roughly to under 1 minute, and this actually help us to solve for the volume needs when we have to handle, say, more than 1 million tests, with a small team. So that has become easier in our case. But again, there is always a threat of, again, coming a disruption from the technology point of view. Say, we keep seeing and hearing so many issues. Hey, we'll just capture a photo and probably tell you about your medical conditions. But I think that's what we also keep, working on, and how we can actually evolve our product and technology into. But I see that that's very far from where we are in the process.
Great. And Mousum, finally, investors' perspective, how do you take into account, whenever you look at an exciting model, how do you, in your investment decision making, take into account the AI opportunity and the threat?
So first of all, I think AI is a great opportunity in healthcare, but it will not be overnight disruption which we tend to see in other sectors. It will be more calibrated. After all, it's the lives which are in concern. There have been a lot of companies, startups, which have come with the claim that you're looking at a picture of a face, they can infrared image of a face, they can identify a lot of parameters. But at the end of it, there is one important person who is making a decision. It's a doctor. Is the doctor going to trust it? Most importantly, he will not trust it if he has seen ample amount of research, ample amount of adoption, probably outside India before the product is brought in. There is a concept in AI development which is called human in the loop. I think from healthcare perspective, the motto should be doctor in the loop. If you build an AI product which has a doctor in the loop, which involves the workflow of the doctor, it will get adopted, but it is still miles away when you see an AI completely coming and taking over diagnosis.
No, great, fantastic. I think we have 10 more questions on the panel, but I think we are all hungry, so we'll stop for now. But thank you everyone. But I think I'll just summarize great models getting built out of India which have huge potential globally. Of course, there is a method to it. You can't spray and pray as we thought, right? These are young companies, have to allocate capital and management time and bandwidth very, very carefully. But very fascinated with the opportunity in Healthtech, Biotech, Medtech, and I truly believe, and I think we all will, that many good success stories are going to get built in the next 5 to 10 years. Great. Thank you everyone for your patient hearing. And I think, sorry, we have eaten 10 seconds away from your lunch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. May I now request Mr. Vijay Parekh to kindly join me on the stage, and please felicitate our speakers and our moderator. We still have one more session to go, so we still have time for lunch. May I request you, sir, to kindly felicitate Mr. Deepak Tuli from Ekacare. Let's have a big round of applause, everyone. Requesting you, sir, to kindly felicitate Mr. Ashish Dugar. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Next, we have Mr. RajatJain from SunFox. Thank you. Huge round of applause, everyone. Requesting you, sir, to kindly felicitate Mr. Mousum Chaudhury from Look Capital. And last but definitely not the least, we have Mr. Rahul Agrawal, the moderator from Health Quad. Thank you once again for chairing the session and for moderating it, and for sharing your valuable insights with us. Thank you. Thank you very much.